The bustling alien research station hummed with energy, a kaleidoscope of advanced technology and alien lifeforms, each engrossed in their work. Amid the chaos, Elira, a young Venerith researcher with a penchant for Earth's exotic fauna, adjusted her luminescent blue goggles. She glanced at the specimen she had become most fascinated by, Milo, a genetically enhanced chimpanzee from Earth. "All right, Milo," she said in her sing-song, slightly mechanical voice. "We've got a big day ahead. The ruins are filled with traps, so we'll need precision and teamwork." Milo, reclining in his habitat pod, lazily peeled a bright green fruit, his human-like eyes glinting with mischief. "Teamwork, huh? Does that mean you'll stop bossing me around for 5 minutes?" Elira tilted her head, her translucent, iridescent skin shifting hues as she processed the comment. She often struggled with Earth's sarcastic undertones but let it slide. "I don't boss you. I lead efficiently." Milo smirked. "Sure, boss." The duo made their way to the loading bay, where a sleek, multi-limbed exosuit awaited. Elira pointed to the rear entry hatch, its design optimized for tandem piloting. "You'll need to come inside me from behind," Elira said matter-of-factly, motioning toward the exosuit. Milo froze, the smirk on his face growing wider. "Say that again?" "Come inside me." "From behind," she repeated, her tone one of clinical precision. Milo erupted into laughter, clutching his sides. "Elira, I don't know what kind of mating rituals you've been studying, but I'm not that kind of chimp." Elira blinked, confused. "What are you talking about? This is the entry protocol for the exosuit." She gestured again to the hatch, utterly oblivious to the implications of her words. "You're killing me," Milo wheezed, wiping a tear from his eye. "You're absolutely killing me." Nearby, a group of alien engineers paused their work, ears twitching as they caught fragments of the conversation. One of them, a slender, lavender-skinned alien named Yurik, turned to his colleague, his voice a hushed whisper. "Did she just—" "She did," the other alien replied, their pale eyes wide with disbelief. Oblivious to the growing audience, Elira grew impatient. "Milo, hurry up! We're on a schedule." Still chuckling, Milo clambered into the hatch, muttering, "I hope you at least bought me dinner first." Inside the exosuit, Elira initiated the synchronization process, unaware of the gossip now brewing in the hangar. Rick and the others exchanged knowing glances, their imaginations running wild. By the time the exosuit powered up and the pair departed for the ruins, rumors were already taking root. "Did you hear what Elira said to the chimp?" one engineer whispered as the group dispersed. "I always knew she was a bit eccentric, but this?" another replied, shaking their head. "Interspecies relations have gone too far." Meanwhile, inside the cockpit, Milo leaned back, his voice dripping with amusement. "You know, Elira, if you keep talking like that, people are going to get the wrong idea." "What idea?" she asked, genuinely puzzled. He shook his head. "Nothing. Forget I said anything. Let's focus on the ruins. Wouldn't want your efficient leadership to fail us now." As the exosuit soared toward the ancient ruins, the first seeds of misunderstanding had been planted, destined to grow into something far more chaotic than either of them could imagine. The cafeteria buzzed with the usual hum of alien chatter, but today a new topic dominated the conversations. Elira's infamous exosuit command had already made its way through the station, courtesy of Yurik and his colleagues. Every retelling grew more exaggerated, blending speculation with humor until it took on a life of its own. "Did you hear? Elira invited her chimp to, get a little too close," said a squat, lime green alien, his voice barely a whisper but his antennae quivering with excitement. "I heard it wasn't just once," replied his companion, an insectoid researcher clicking their mandibles. "Apparently it's a regular thing. She even has a protocol for it." Nearby, Zilfax, a self-proclaimed upholder of station decorum, eavesdropped with a growing sense of alarm. His elongated snout twitched in disapproval as he processed the supposed breach of conduct. "Disgraceful," he muttered, his voice loud enough to draw curious glances. "This is a research station, not some depraved interspecies experiment. Within moments, Zilfax was on the move, marching toward the station's administrative office. The story needed to be reported, accurately of course, and with plenty of indignant embellishment. In the administrator's chamber, Commander Glofner, a rigid and humorless being with a face perpetually twisted in mild disgust, reviewed station reports with mechanical efficiency. The sudden arrival of Zilfax interrupted his routine. "Commander, I must bring to your attention a grievous violation of our interspecies code of conduct," Zilfax declared, puffing up his chest. Glofner raised an unimpressed brow. "Explain." Zilfax leaned in conspiratorially. "It concerns the Venerith researcher Elira and her Earth creature. I have reliable sources that indicate inappropriate activities between them, openly conducted within our facilities." For a moment, Glofner simply stared. Then, with a sigh that spoke of long-suffering patience, he gestured for Zilfax to continue. "Elaborate." Zilfax recounted the rumors with dramatic flair, weaving in phrases like blatant disregard for station protocol and undermining the integrity of interspecies relations. By the end of his report, Glofner's scowl had deepened. "Summon her," he ordered curtly. Zilfax left, satisfied, while Glofner prepared for what he anticipated would be a most uncomfortable conversation. Meanwhile, Elira and Milo were deep in the ruins, entirely unaware of the storm brewing back at the station. The ancient corridors were narrow and dimly lit, forcing the exocet to maneuver carefully. Elira's focus was on navigating the labyrinth of traps while Milo provided sarcastic commentary from the co-pilot's seat. "Push harder from behind," Elira instructed as they encountered a particularly stubborn mechanism blocking their path. Milo snorted. "You really have a way with words, you know that?" "What do you mean?" she asked, genuinely puzzled. "Never mind," he said, grinning as he engaged the exocet's hydraulics. The mechanism groaned and gave way, revealing a new chamber filled with ancient artifacts. Back at the station, Glofner dispatched a retrieval team to bring Elira and Milo back for questioning. The rumors had spread further, warping into tales of forbidden interspecies romance, secret experiments, and even a conspiracy to create hybrid offspring. By the time the team arrived at the ruins, half the station was abuzz with speculation. The retrieval team found Elira and Milo inspecting an artifact, blissfully unaware of the commotion they had caused. "Researcher Elira, you are required to return to the station immediately," the team leader announced. "What's this about?" Elira asked, confused. "Administrator's orders," the leader replied curtly. Milo leaned back in his seat, smirking. "Looks like you're in trouble. What did you do this time?" "I haven't done anything," Elira replied, her tone defensive. "Sure you haven't," Milo teased as they powered down the exocet and prepared to leave. As the exocet ascended toward the station, Milo couldn't resist adding, "This should be fun. I can't wait to see how you talk your way out of this one." "What are you talking about?" Elira asked. "Nothing. Just remember to use your best phrasing," Milo said, grinning mischievously. Back on the station, the tension was palpable as Elira and Milo arrived at the administrative office. Glofner sat behind his imposing desk, flanked by Zilfax and several other concerned staff members. "Researcher Elira," Glofner began, his tone grave. "You stand accused of conduct unbecoming a representative of this station." Elira blinked, utterly baffled. "I don't understand. What conduct?" Glofner exchanged a glance with Zilfax, who cleared his throat and stepped forward. "We have multiple accounts of inappropriate interactions between you and your Earth specimen." Milo immediately burst into laughter, doubling over and slapping his knees. "Oh, this is going to be good," he wheezed. Elira's confusion deepened. "What are you talking about? Milo is my research assistant." "Is that what you call it?" Zilfax interjected, his tone dripping with judgment. Milo leaned against the desk, still chuckling. "Oh, please do go on. This is the best entertainment I've had all week." Glofner frowned. "Enough." Elira, your words and actions have been reported as a violation of professional boundaries. Explain yourself. My actions? Elira asked, completely lost. Specifically, Zilfax added, your repeated commands for the earth creature to come inside you from behind. Elira froze, her cheeks flushing a bright, iridescent purple as realization dawned. Wait, that's what this is about. Milo, grinning ear to ear, leaned in. Careful, boss. Your phrasing might get you in deeper. Glofner raised a hand for silence. Enough of this. Elira, you will prepare a full report explaining your actions. This matter will not be taken lightly. As Elira and Milo left the office, Milo couldn't resist a parting shot. Well, at least now they know you're very efficient with your commands. Elira groaned. This was going to be a long day. The station's corridors buzzed with a mix of amusement and tension as Elira walked back to her lab, her iridescent skin shifting to a flustered pink hue. Beside her, Milo was still reveling in the chaos they had left behind in Glofner's office. You know, Milo began, his tone laced with mischief. If they just hand out awards for accidental innuendo, you'd win galaxy-wide recognition. Elira shot him a glare. This isn't funny, Milo. My reputation is at stake. Oh, it's hilarious, Milo countered. You've managed to turn a straightforward mission briefing into interspecies scandal of the century. She huffed, adjusting her goggles in frustration. I don't understand why everyone keeps twisting my words. I was perfectly clear about the procedures. Milo smirked. Perfectly clear to you, maybe. To everyone else, it sounds like you're auditioning for an alien soap opera. They reached the lab, where a message notification blinked ominously on Elira's console. It was a summons for an official inquiry, scheduled for the next day. Elira groaned, slumping into her chair. I can't believe this is happening, she muttered. Milo hopped onto the counter, casually peeling another fruit. Hey, look on the bright side. At least you're famous now. Infamous, maybe, but still. Not helping, Elira snapped. Milo chuckled. Come on, boss. You need to loosen up. Maybe work on your phrasing for tomorrow's big event. She shot him another glare, but his comment got her thinking. If she was going to survive this inquiry, she needed to clear up the misunderstanding once and for all. And unfortunately, that meant rehearsing with the one being who found the entire situation endlessly amusing. Fine, she said, sitting up straighter. Help me prepare. Milo raised an eyebrow. You're serious? Yes, Elira replied firmly. If I'm going to convince the inquiry panel, I need to ensure there's no room for misinterpretation. Milo grinned. Oh, this is going to be good. She began by reciting her exocet instructions, carefully avoiding any phrases that could be misconstrued. Milo, however, wasn't making it easy. Too stiff, he said after her first attempt. You sound like a malfunctioning AI. What do you suggest? She asked, exasperated. Milo leaned back, arms crossed. Try something more natural. Like Milo, can you assist me in entering the operational zone via the designated rear hatch? Elira frowned. That's basically what I said before. Yeah, but now it sounds boring. Trust me, boring is what you want right now, Milo replied, smirking. They continued rehearsing, with Milo offering increasingly absurd alternatives just to see how far he could push her. By the end of the session, Elira was mentally exhausted but slightly more confident. The next morning, the inquiry panel convened in a large, sterile chamber. Glofner presided over the proceedings, his expression as stern as ever. Elira stood in the center of the room, Milo seated behind her with a grin that suggested he was thoroughly enjoying himself. Researcher Elira, Glofner began. You have been summoned to address allegations of misconduct. Do you have any opening statements? Yes, Commander, Elira said, her voice steady despite her nerves. I would like to clarify that my interactions with Milo have been entirely professional and in line with the station's protocols. Glofner's eyes narrowed. Then explain the reports we've received. Taking a deep breath, Elira launched into her explanation, carefully avoiding any language that could be misinterpreted. She described the exosuit procedures, the mission parameters, and her instructions to Milo with clinical precision. The panel listened intently, but the room remained tense. Finally, one of the panel members, a rotund, blue-skinned alien with an air of skepticism, leaned forward. And yet your choice of words during these interactions has caused significant confusion. How do you explain that? Elira hesitated, glancing at Milo for support. To her surprise, he stepped forward. Look, Milo began, his tone casual but sincere. This whole thing's been blown way out of proportion. Elira's a scientist, not a stand-up comedian. She didn't mean anything by her phrasing, it's just a classic case of cultural differences. The panel murmured among themselves, considering his words. Lofner remained impassive. You admit, then, that her phrasing was inappropriate? The commander asked. Milo shrugged. Sure, if you've got a dirty mind. But that's not on her. That's on all of you for jumping to conclusions. Elira stared at him, equal parts grateful and horrified. Milo, noticing her expression, gave her a wink. The inquiry continued, with Elira answering each question as precisely as possible. By the end, the panel seemed more inclined to believe her explanation, though the tension in the room hadn't entirely dissipated. As they left the chamber, Elira let out a long breath of relief. That could have gone worse. Milo grinned. See? I told you my charm would win them over. She rolled her eyes but couldn't help a small smile. Let's just hope this is the end of it. End of it? Milo said with mock offense. This is only the beginning. You've got a reputation to maintain now, boss. Elira groaned, but deep down, she knew she'd never hear the end of it, and maybe, just maybe, she didn't entirely mind. The days following the inquiry were marked by a strange shift in station dynamics. Elira found herself at the center of an unexpected phenomenon. Her once serious reputation as a no-nonsense researcher had somehow morphed into a blend of respect and notoriety, fueled by the viral spread of her phrasing incidents. Walking through the station, she overheard snippets of conversation from crew members who seemed to relish recounting her greatest linguistic hits. Each retelling grew more exaggerated, and Milo's gleeful contributions only made matters worse. I swear, she didn't even blink when she said it, one engineer whispered dramatically. Another replied, I mean, you've got to admire the confidence. Elira did her best to ignore them, focusing on her work. But even in her lab, the echoes of her unintended fame followed her. Milo had taken to calling her Commander Clarity, a nickname that made her cringe every time she heard it. You know, Milo said one afternoon, lounging in his usual spot, you should probably just lean into it. Own the joke, and no one can use it against you. I'd rather not, Elira muttered, adjusting the calibration on her latest experiment. Oh, come on, Milo pressed, tossing a tool in the air and catching it absent-mindedly. You've already made history as the first researcher to accidentally create a galactic meme. You might as well capitalize on it. Elira turned to him, exasperated. And how exactly do you propose I do that? Milo grinned. For starters, you could host a workshop on interspecies communication. Call it something catchy, like speaking without suggesting. She groaned, burying her face in her hands. Why are you like this? Because it's fun, Milo replied, utterly unrepentant. Despite her reluctance, Milo's words stuck with her. If she couldn't escape the jokes, maybe she could redirect them. Over the next week, Elira quietly drafted a presentation on improving cross-cultural communication, focusing on avoiding misunderstandings. She rehearsed in secret, determined to reclaim some control over the narrative. When the day of the workshop arrived, the turnout was far larger than she had anticipated. Word had spread, and crew members from every department packed into the lecture hall, eager to see what Commander Clarity had planned. Milo sat in the front row, smirking like a proud parent. Elira resisted the urge to throw something at him, and instead took a deep breath, stepping up to the podium. Good morning, she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. Today, We'll be discussing the importance of clear communication in interspecies collaboration. And yes, we'll also address the challenges I've faced in this area." The room erupted in laughter, but it was warm, not mocking. Elira waited for it to subside before continuing. "Now, let's start with some examples," she said, pulling up a slide. It displayed a transcript of one of her infamous interactions with Milo, complete with annotations highlighting potential sources of confusion. As she walked the audience through the slide, she noticed that their laughter shifted. It was still present, but it became more thoughtful, less about mockery and more about recognition. By the end of the workshop, Elira felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The crew's perception of her had changed again, not back to the rigid respect of her earlier days, but to something more balanced, more human. After the presentation, Milo approached her, his usual smirk replaced by something softer. "Not bad, boss. You might actually be good at this whole public speaking thing." "Don't push it," Elira replied, but she couldn't hide her smile. Later that evening, as she reviewed the feedback from her workshop, a message came through from Glofner. "Researcher Elira," it read, "your efforts to address recent communication issues have been noted and appreciated. Your initiative reflects well on both you and the station." Elira stared at the message for a moment before leaning back in her chair. For all the chaos and embarrassment she'd endured, it seemed she had managed to turn the situation around. Milo wandered into the room, munching on yet another piece of fruit. "So, what's next for Commander Clarity? Another workshop? A book deal? How about a little peace and quiet?" she replied, giving him a pointed look. "Boring," Milo said, grinning. "But fine. I'll give you a week before I start planning your next big adventure." As much as she wanted to protest, Elira couldn't help but laugh. Life on the station might never be the same, but at least she knew she could handle whatever came next, even if it involved Milo and his endless mischief.